Reforge just made a recent video where he claims that PS5 Pro is changing gaming. I'm kind of curious as to what his thoughts are, and from the comments that I'm seeing, I think some people might be a little bit misconceived as to what the PC platform offers in terms of price. Like this person who calls himself Muffin Destroyer 9000 on the comment section of his video said, PS5 Pro is changing gaming by closing the gap between console and PC. Then he said by the time the PS6 drops and let's say costs around $700-800 US, it'll very likely rival a $2,100 to $2,400 PC. In my opinion, this particular comment has got to be AI generated for laughs because, again, we find ourselves in a very interesting place because the PS5 Pro right now is here and could not even rival the off-the-cuff, shoot-from-the-hip comparison that Richard Ledbetter put out at the 4070 point, and it was run with by these so-called PlayStation fanboys, only for it to get bludgeoned by that hardware, which by all measures at this moment of our conversation is already outdated. So how a PS6, which is going to be built on possibly current generation hardware and technology, is going to match with PC in the future, and somebody already has somewhat concluded this, is quite surprising and shocking to me. So we'll go ahead and we'll look at a little bit of the video. Let's see if there are some things that we can glean from here. Because again, I've told you guys that many times information goes around in these conversations and somewhere, somehow, things get misconstrued because there is an air of fanboyism in the air. I'm not saying anything about Reforge. I'm just talking about the audience member who may have watched this video and concluded that. Let's dive in.
The PlayStation 5 Pro is changing the future of gaming. More specifically, it's changing what a console can be. Mark Cerny recently sat down and did an interview about their plans for the PS5 Pro and their PSSR technology. And while some of this won't make landfall until 2026, it has far-reaching implications. It's going to impact what developers can do with the Pro, but also future generations of the PlayStation console.
You know what's crazy, ladies and gentlemen? We already know what developers can do with the Pro at this moment in time. Why? Because every single iteration of PSSR is provided to the developers by PlayStation themselves. So whatever PlayStation has actually afforded the developers, most developers, or at least some developers, have already implemented. Most developers are taking a look at to figure out which one works for them. And in the case of those who have already implemented the version of PSSR that they have, we've already seen what they're capable of doing with it on the present hardware. So for anybody to still be talking about what a console that was proposed to have some offerings can offer after the console has been on the market for a number of months, it's already strange. Do you see that the premise of all of this is kind of weird? Let me tell you what I sense. This is my opinion. Let me go ahead and make sure I box this in the opinion category. I think it's time to run cover for those who basically ran around and up-talked the PS5 Pro to be more than what it was. You see, many of them right now are in a position where they realize that, man, this PS5 Pro was just a designer product, nothing under the hood for the most part. So they now have to latch on to Cerny's interview, gaslight everybody, this is just my opinion, and then make it seem like, well, nobody really promised you all this stuff when the PS5 Pro came out. However, the PS5 Pro came out with the premise that it will fulfill some of the things that the PS5 base was already supposed to fulfill. So already we could see some, elements of this so-called ruse, and I think now it's going to be very interesting to see what goes on going forward. Just my opinion.
And even though the PS5 Pro isn't pacing as strong as the PS4 Pro did in the sales department, it's what's on the inside that matters most right now.
What's on the inside?
Back when there was a lot of bluster and criticism about the price and the device's capabilities, I remember cautioning folks from getting ahead of themselves. Mark Cerny seemed to be investing not just in the hardware for the power for the gamers, he was actively seeking to build something that would appeal to developers and change what a console can be.
Okay. Developers got a hold of it and they were like, oof. In some cases they were like, yay. So again, it's a mixed bag.
And his latest interview really drives that home. It has a very long view, looking at the horizon of where the Pro can go, but also where the PlayStation 6 could go as well. In other words, we haven't seen the final form of PSSR.
So they sold you a console without a final form of the implementation that is on there? Man, welcome to AMD. You guys are now PC customers. PlayStation fans, I'm giving you a thumbs up, man. I wish y'all could see me on this side.
And what the Pro can do, and it all comes back to PlayStation's relationship with AMD. Now,
homie, everybody's got a relationship with AMD. My little kid over there has got an AMD build. The other one has got it's got AMD powered devices in their build. I got AMD builds. We all got a relationship with AMD. So does Xbox and Steam and Valve and everybody, man. Let me go ahead and let me get the tongue in cheek away from this. I know, but this to me is just padding. What relationship is special that AMD is going to be able to cultivate with PlayStation that they don't already have with other sectors of the market that they're going to serve? I'm curious.
Before we get into what was said and what it means for the future, be sure to hit like and subscribe if at any point in this video you like what you see and you want more content like it. Something I've been encouraging gamers to do since the very first PS5 Pro trailer is to listen to what Mark Cerny says as opposed to outlets and content creators who seemingly have some sort of an anti-Sony bias.
Nope. Before you get to the anti-Sony bias, you must talk about those who engaged in what Mark Cerny called flopflation. Now, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Sure, there were probably people who had an anti-Sony bias in the conversation. If you maybe want to paint some content creators in that light, I would say fine. However, there were genuine conversations that were being had by those who engaged in flopflation and those who were basically called to standard by people that were showing them metrics, possibilities, and what the hardware could do. Again, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, this feels like padding, and you could already sense it. I mean, let's go ahead and kind of get the receipts together. There were the 4070 claims, downclocked 4070. I have to be very precise with Digital Foundry. But then elements like DBatch and then some of NIB and some across the internet were running with the RDNA 3 and some of the 4070 comparisons and blah, 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 blah. The receipts are there. The Turk also got into the conversation where on the VG5 School channel, we basically crowned him the FPS accountant. Do y'all remember, or did we easily forget? So before we get to the anti-PlayStation bias, we must call into attention those who over or attempt to oversell the capabilities of the PS5 Pro. Just stating that.
Even in the wake of this interview, multiple outlets have misrepresented what Mark Cerny said. So first, what did he not say?
Well, that's sad.
He did not say they are bringing FSR 4 to the Pro. That is probably going to become a pretty quick false headcanon for people who are reading some of these headlines and posts.
Okay, yeah, but still though. I mean, all right, let's keep going.
Second, he did not say that they are replacing PSSR with FSR 4 or some other new technology. I've already seen these false narratives getting traction in...
Hold on. So if PSSR is going to metabolize or morph into an iteration of FSR 4 down the road, it then means that it will be probably replaced by a different iteration as it progresses, right? Now, it may not be called FSR 4, but it will be branded under the PSSR tag, which is pretty much some FSR component-based neural link machine learning, blah, blah, blah. Okay, on a technicality, I can see that you have those people who are making this claim by the ropes. However, when we look under the layer, PSSR, from what Cerny said, is seemingly going to be evolving. In fact, you just said that in the beginning of your video, that the final form of this particular iteration is still coming. So, okay.
Large part due to headlines and posts that worded it to make it seem as though PSSR was not the focus of his remarks. Many people think that PSSR was a failure and this is some sort of a backtrack and they're trying to sort of retrofit FSR into the Pro. That is simply not the case. This is the result of Project Amethyst and the work that is helping both companies. Thankfully, Eurogamer actually got the headline correct in their article titled, Mark Cerny, FSR 4 for PS5 Pro is the next evolution of PSSR.
Hold on. FSR 4 for PS5 Pro. Hence, FSR 4 is going to have some influence for the PS5 Pro, and PSSR is going to evolve into adopting, maybe taking on some form or shape of FSR 4. That's why I said it's based on the technicality he has these folk, but in reality, PSSR is still baby tech compared to FSR 4 and would love to learn from FSR 4. I think you're basically talking about the same thing and trying to make a slight difference based on technicality of that same thing. But I'll still give it to you because I think you want to go more refined in this particular video, but just fine, which is all right. Let's keep listening.
Which is essentially what this is about, the evolution of PSSR.
Which will basically take it from where it is right now to a much more intuitive iteration, thereby it's still being cooked. Okay, logic is serving me here, so I think Reforge, you may be building a case for me. Okay, keep going.
Not backporting or putting FSR 4 onto the Pro. Also,
how do you mean? Oh, he's using a technical language, backporting. What? It's just refining of the process to look more like the new updated technology, which is FSR 4 in today's day and age. So what would backporting have to do with anything? I don't understand. Let me keep listening.
He makes it clear, before even getting into the details, that this is some of the first results from their joint venture, Project Amethyst, with AMD. He said the following: "The neural network and training recipe in FSR 4's upscaler are the first results of the Amethyst collaboration, and results are excellent. It is a more advanced approach that can exceed the crispness of PSSR."
Okay, so they want to adopt something that can exceed areas where PSSR falls short. Huh. Okay.
"I'm very proud of the work of the joint team."
Oh, so Cerny basically came in and spoke corpo. I would love for him to do one of his engineering talks where we can actually get a lot more detail as to what the differences will be down the road.
This is precisely what many of us predicted would come from this.
Really? Man, I wish I could hear those predictions loud enough to basically block those who kept saying that, PC fanboys were jealous of the PS5 Pro. And the reason they're jealous is because very soon their so-called 4070s is going to be toppled over by a $700 device. I mean, I have the videos and I have the receipts. I have the, comments. We got the tweets. We got it all. Like, you know what I mean? Like I made so many videos because this is one thing that happens. The reason I make so many videos is so that I can pile up receipts. You got to understand, in my nature of work, you have to be able to document things. And so this is a documentary, guys.
The two-way street would see AMD cards gaining better tech, and that having a direct impact and helping the tech on the PlayStation as well. What I didn't know at the time.
So basically, AMD be carrying consoles. It's okay. It's a conclusion that I've come to years ago. So, I mean, good. I'm glad you're finally getting here, sir.
Time was that this was going to help evolve PSSR on the Pro that I already have in my house. I assume this was mainly setting its sights on the PlayStation 6, which is still true, but the journey there will essentially make the PS5 Pro improve with every update. Listen to what Mark says.
Bro, you're about to make a video about a freaking update to an already existing piece of software technology and then try to say that the update is not going to replace the already existing piece of technology. Like, you're 3 minutes and 37 seconds in, and Mark's corpo speak is just being watered down to the base level on my end because I do some software development. So all of this talking is making me go, I mean, are we talking about what you're talking about, but not wanting to make us talk about, but you want to basically, funnel it in your own way? I'm kind of surprised. What's going on here? Let's listen to him and Mark, though. Okay.
Our focus for 2025 is working with developers to integrate PSSR into their titles. In parallel, though, we have already started to implement the new neural network on the PS5 Pro. Our target is to have something very similar to FSR 4's upscaler available on PS5 Pro for 2026 titles and the next evolution of PSSR. It should take the same inputs and produce essentially the same outputs. Doing that implementation is rather ambitious and time-consuming, which is why you haven't already seen this new upscaler on the PS5 Pro.
Okay, so we're going to replace it with something better for games going onward. Wouldn't that be replacing PSSR with an FSR 4 like module that will also be branded PSSR? I'm looking for the technicality here, but
So this is a very nuanced and specific way of talking about it. That's why this is needed. They are evolving and improving PSSR. They're not replacing it. They're not putting FSR 4 on the Pro.
sir, go back and read that again. FSR 4 would not even be able to be compatible with the Pro because of hardware differences and limitations. So I don't think anybody who knows what they're talking about would have even made that claim. However, them pushing their PSSR implementation closer to FSR 4 means that there's still work to be done. There are gaps to be filled and improvements to be made on the super sampling resolution framework, which is what they're going to do. Hence, there's no running out of this. PSSR was served undone. Yeah, it's like, you put the pastry in the oven and it hadn't reached its point. You put the toothpick inside of it to check and see if the moisture level is right. You put it out and serve it. People look at the outside. It looks beautiful. You take a bite. There's still raw goo in the middle. So you got to get it back in the oven again and bake it. That's PSSR in a very, very light form. Hey, by the way, we saw it with DLSS. There's no shame in it. This is where I have to go and just say, and I'm going to stop the video here because I think we're going to dance around and around and around and around the reality. There is no shame in a company basically coming out to say there's room for improvement. It's a good thing. But I think a lot of these folk are in a loop of running defense for these companies that many of them, because they've argued so heavily and backed themselves into a corner, can't even see that reality as a good thing anymore. Why? Because majority of them, their previous stance was this is going to be the savior of gaming. If you notice, the title of the video said PS5 Pro is changing gaming. While gaming done already changed, then PS5 Pro has to now catch up with a closed version of FSR 4 in 2026, while there's FSR 4 implementation being spoken about as a reality today. That premise is what really exposes a lot of the content creators as people who may not necessarily be looking for objectivity in technology. 3 minutes in, and I'm laughing going, what are we even talking about here? Thanks for watching the video. I'll spare you any more of the details. I'll leave a link to the video in the description. You can watch for yourself. Perhaps if I miss anything, let me know, but I will continue watching the video because I really don't want to make you guys a 30 or 40 minute video. Peace out.